A shocking crime, a silent church, a mystery that has lasted for decades. The murder of Arlis Perry, which took place in 1974 inside the Memorial Church at Stanford University, is one of the most disturbing and unsolved cases in the criminal history of the United States. With elements that suggest rituals, suspicions that even involve a famous serial killer, and investigations that continue to this day, this case raises questions that still have no answers. What really happened that night? Who could commit such a brutal crime in a sacred place? And why, after so many years, the mystery remains unsolved? Watch now to discover the details of this case that defies time and continues to intrigue experts and the public. Imagine a 19-year-old girl full of dreams and plans for the future. Her name was Arlis Perry. She was a sweet, intelligent, and very religious girl. Arlis had just married Bruce Perry, her great love, and the two decided to start a new life together in California. Bruce was going to study at the famous Stanford University, and Arlis was excited to support him on this new journey. On the night of October 12, 1974, Arlis decided to go to Memorial Church, a quiet and beautiful place on the university campus, to meditate and reflect on life. She loved that place, which gave her peace and security. But that night, something terrible happened. Arlis never returned home. When her body was found the next morning, everyone was shocked. Someone had taken her life in a cruel and mysterious way, inside the church itself. This was the beginning of a case that left everyone confused and scared. How could something so horrible happen in such a sacred place? And who would do this to such a kind young woman? These questions still haunt many people to this day. Imagine walking into a silent church where the only sound you hear is the echo of your footsteps. That was how the janitor at Memorial Church felt on the morning of October 13, 1974, when he went to do his cleaning routine. But as he approached the altar, he saw something he would never forget. The body of Arlis Perry was lying there, on her back, in a scene that seemed straight out of a nightmare. Arlis had a candle stuck in her chest as if someone had tried to perform some kind of ritual. Another candle was placed between her feet, and her body showed signs of terrible violence. She had been attacked with a sharp object, and there were marks of a struggle at the scene. The scene was so disturbing that even the most experienced police officers were shocked. What was most striking was the way everything was organized. It seemed as if the killer wanted to send a message, as if he were trying to create a symbolic or ritualistic scene. But what did that mean? Why would someone do something so horrible in a sacred place? These questions swirled around in everyone's head, but no one had any answers. The church, which had once been a place of peace and tranquility, had become a scene of horror. And the crime scene, with its candles and mysterious symbols, left everyone wondering, who would do something like this? And why? When the police arrived at the crime scene, they soon realized that the case would be complicated. The scene was disturbing, but there were few leads to follow. There were no witnesses who had seen anything suspicious in the church that night, and the physical evidence was limited. The killer seemed to have acted cautiously, leaving no obvious traces. One of the first people to be investigated was Bruce Perry, Arlis's husband. This is common in cases like this, since family, members, and close associates are always checked. However, Bruce had a solid alibi. He was asleep in the couple's apartment at the time of the crime, and there was no reason to believe that he was involved. The police quickly ruled him out as a suspect. With no witnesses or clear evidence, the investigation began to cool down. Police interviewed several people, including church members and college students, but no one seemed to know anything. The case began to seem hopeless, and the lack of progress left Arlis's family and the community frustrated. Despite their efforts, Arlis Perry's murder remained a mystery for many years. Police did not have the advanced technology we have today, which made it even more difficult to find answers. The case went cold, but it was never forgotten. Over the years, several theories emerged as to who might be responsible for Arlis Perry's murder. At first, police considered the possibility that the killer was someone who knew the church or had some kind of connection to it. After all, the killer seemed to know how to get in and out without being noticed. One of the first suspects was people connected to the church itself, such as members of the community or even someone who attended the place regularly. However, there was no concrete evidence to support this theory. Another line of investigation considered the possibility that the crime had been committed by someone with personal motivations, perhaps someone who knew Arlis or had something against her. Years later, the case gained new attention when David Berkowitz, known as Son of Sam, claimed to have been involved in the murder. Berkowitz was a notorious serial killer who had already been arrested for other crimes. He claimed that Arlis's murder was part of satanic rituals that he and others had performed. However, there is no evidence to directly link Berkowitz to the crime, and many experts believe that his claims were simply an attempt to attract attention. In addition, some theories suggest that the crime may have been motivated by religious or symbolic reasons, due to the way the body was found. However, without solid evidence, all of these theories remain speculation. The case remains without a clear suspect, leaving many questions unanswered. David Berkowitz, known as Son of Sam, is one of the most notorious serial killers in the United States. He was arrested in 1977 for a series of murders and attempted murders in New York City. Years later, while serving time, Berkowitz made startling claims. He claimed to have been involved in the murder of Arlis Perry. According to Berkowitz, the crime was part of satanic rituals that he and others had performed at the time. He described details that, in theory, only someone involved in the crime would know. However, police and experts doubted the credibility of these claims. Berkowitz was known for making false statements to gain attention, and there was no physical evidence directly linking him to the Arlis case. Despite their suspicions, police investigated Berkowitz's claims. He even provided information about the case, but none of it was enough to prove his involvement. Furthermore, Berkowitz was mainly active in New York, while Arlis's murder took place in California, which made his connection to the crime even more unlikely. In the end, the connection between David Berkowitz and Arlis Perry's murder remains unconfirmed. His claims remain a point of interest in the case, but without concrete evidence, they are nothing more than speculation. The mystery of who really killed Arlis Perry still persists. The murder of Arlis Perry had a profound impact on the Stanford community and the victim's family. The brutality of the crime, combined with the fact that it occurred in a sacred place like a church, left everyone shocked and afraid. People began to question their safety, even in places they had previously considered safe and secure. For Arlis's family, the case was a devastating tragedy. They had lost a young woman full of life and dreams, and the lack of answers only added to their pain. The family had always sought justice, but as the years passed and the investigation lacked progress, their hope of seeing the case solved faded. The case also gained national attention, becoming one of the most fascinating mysteries in American criminal history. Books, documentaries, and news reports have been written about Arlis's murder, attempting to unravel what really happened that night. The crime also sparked discussions about the possibility of ritualistic or symbolic motivations, something that was little explored at the time. Even decades later, the legacy of the case lives on. It serves as a reminder of how some crimes can remain unsolved, leaving families and communities searching for answers that may never come. For many, the murder of Arlis Perry is a symbol of injustice and mystery. With the advancement of forensic technology, many cold cases are reopened in the hope of finding new clues. The murder of Arlis Perry was no exception. In 2018, the Stanford Police Department announced that it was reviewing the case using modern techniques, such as DNA analysis and other forensic tools that were not available at the time of the crime. The reopening of the case brought a new wave of hope to Arlis's family and to those who have followed the mystery for decades. Police collected new evidence samples from the crime scene in an attempt to identify possible suspects or connections that had not been previously identified. In addition, witnesses who were not interviewed at the time or who may have new information were contacted. However, despite technological advances, the case remains unsolved. The lack of preserved physical evidence and the time that has passed since the crime are significant obstacles. Even so, the police are keeping the case active. and any new discoveries could be crucial to finally unraveling the mystery. The reopening of the case has also caught the attention of the media and the public, showing that interest in solving Arlis Perry's murder is still high. As technology continues to evolve, there is hope that one day justice will be served and Arlis's family can find peace. So what did you think of this mystery? The Arlis Perry case is just one of many that still challenge the police and leave everyone on edge. If you enjoyed following this story full of twists and turns and secrets, stay tuned to my channel, because I will bring you many more cases like this. There are stories of mysterious crimes, unsolved mysteries, and investigations that will leave you speechless. So leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Until next time, and remember, there's always more mystery here.